IPXers. Today, I've got a special treat. In the studio with us is John MacDonald, CEO of Atlas. They developed a tool set that helps embedded developers get to market faster, which they call the Fuse toolset. John, please tell me all about it. What do we got here?
Sure. So Atlas, as you mentioned, we've developed a tool set. It's called Fuse. It has three parts. Fuse build guarantees reproducible and traceable builds itself. Fuse test is a standard framework for automating hardware in the loop testing, not just hardware in the loop, sort of heterogeneous test farms could include simulation and emulation as well, but hardware in the loop testing specifically. And then Fuse Deliver ensures every shipment is fully traceable. When we put these tools together, you no longer have to waste time debugging your build environments or your fragile custom hardware in the loop automation environments. The pipelines themselves are tracking down what you shipped because Fuse does it for you.
Amazing. So Fuse build, let's just start there. Where would I be if I wasn't using it? What problem is that actually solving that's currently in the industry?
Yeah, so one of the problems that when we started developing this technology, one of the problems that we had seen, and listen, I've been in the embedded world for 30 years, okay? As an engineer, as a leader, I've done software development, I've done hardware development, I've done systems engineering. I have kind of a lot of background in all this.
You make me feel young, John.
One of the firmware and software problems on the build side is this, what we call this complex version matrix. And what I mean, there's a couple aspects to that. One aspect is all of the tool chains that you're going to use to build, any tool chain is not native to your system. And therefore, it's a cross-compiled tool chain, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's many different vendors.
It sounds like you're completely getting rid of the classic, well, made it works on my machine, why doesn't it work on yours?
That's exactly right. How many times have we all heard on Friday night when we're trying to get a release out? Okay, I got it to work on my machine, and then I push it back. And then somebody else tries, they have to integrate with it, or it goes to the production build server, and it doesn't.
A huge setback that you didn't need. John, I haven't been in the industry for nearly as long as you have been, but I can guarantee you I've seen that a couple of times before.
Yeah, and it's inevitably it's on Friday night, right? So, and then the other piece to this, it allows us to guarantee reproducible builds, because what Fuse does, and I'll show you a sort of the demonstration of this in a little bit. But what it does is it saves all the metadata, not just the containerized tool chain itself, but all the metadata associated with the build, including the command that was used, including all of the dependencies that were used, who, what, where. We keep all of this under what we call the single source of truth, which is a Fuse ID, which is a value. Looks a little bit like a commit ID. It has some of that aspect to it. We keep all of that metadata in a database under the single source of truth, the Fuse ID. And with that Fuse ID, you have access. You can completely 100% guarantee reproducible build. And you can track all of the information associated with that particular build at any time.
The single source of truth. Awesome. Okay, let's talk about the test environment now. What is that solving?
So another issue that Fuse addresses is this hardware in the loop testing. Now, lots of teams are doing hardware in the loop testing today, but bar none, they're doing it with custom scripts, custom frameworks. A lot of people are using PyTest. PyTest is a great tool. We use it also, but you have to build your own. And so one of the things we recognized was, wow, wouldn't it be interesting? Wouldn't it be great if instead of having to write code every time we're going to automate our hardware in the loop testing, there was a standardized framework where our team, presumably the test and QA teams, they can focus on the test content and testing devices as opposed to having to write code. A lot of times, the skill set in the QA and test teams doesn't match up with software developers. Sometimes you don't necessarily have that skill set on that team. And so what we've done is with Fuse Test we've created a standardized framework. You don't have to write code. If you've written code, we use all of that you're using. We use the tools, the custom tools, because your development team has probably had to write tools, applications that they use to test their devices. And so we just use that and we automate the process. Our framework takes the viewpoint of the person in the lab. So whatever the person would do, whatever tools, whatever commands that they would send information to the device under test. And then however they determine pass fail or whatever it is, the data that they're trying to ascertain from the test, then we would do that same thing. So, or a fuse test does that same thing. So it's it's a little bit like the way we sort of describe it. It's a little bit like kind of the macro functionality in, for example, Microsoft Excel, right? So you can say record and it captures all of the operations that you would be doing in your Excel file. And then you say stop. And then now you have this macro that you continue to run. So fuse test is a little bit like that for this embedded testing environment. What are all the things that you, the tester, would do to test your device? Let's record that. And then how do you determine pass fail? Well, let's just tell fuse test how you would do that. So it's this person in the lab concept. And what we've been able to do then with this is bring CI/CD back. I'm sorry. What we've been able to do is bring hardware in the loop testing, true hardware in the loop testing into your CI/CD process. Because what fuse test does, obviously, it takes this person in the lab approach, but also it orchestrates and manages all of the test content and your DUT farm for you, your device under test farm. So you don't have to worry about how am I going to parallelize this? How am I going to send this content to device A, but this other content to device B? So fuse test does all of that orchestration and parallelization for you.
Let's talk about deliver. And engineers, everyone who's watching this, here's a little peek behind the curtain. I actually have spoken to John about this before, and now it's time to talk about deliver. Deliver is one of the most exciting parts of the Fuse framework that I believe will help the most of us out. Anyone who's ever sent a piece of code out on a piece of hardware and it's gotten to its destination, and you look to your mate and you say, what did I actually put on that piece of hardware? John has a great solution for you, and that is Fuse Deliver. John, could you tell us more about it?
Sure, yeah. So Fuse Deliver just ties up the whole configuration management piece at the end of the chain. So with your single source of truth, your Fuse ID from the database, then you can go through the delivery process. And then no matter what you've sent, no matter where you've sent it, not only do you know exactly what was sent because you understand all the metadata associated with that Fuse ID, but you 100% can reproduce it at any time in the future, right? We're talking months, however long in the past that you sent this thing, you'll know what is it. If it's a little demonstration version that was sent to a potential customer 6 months ago, and now all of a sudden you've got to figure out what that is and how to reproduce it, no problem. Fuse Deliver allows you to do that. Here's a little story about it. So
Please.
the genesis of Fuse Deliver comes from the following. So I was in a conference room. It was like my very first week at this particular company where we developed a lot of this technology. I was in a conference room, and the CEO of our company, it's a small company, the CEO of the company is standing at the front of this conference room. He's got his arms out. He's got this exasperated look on his face, and he asks a very simple question to the room. Can someone please tell me what we sent? Nobody can answer the question because here's what had happened. An
You've just
FA
given thousands of engineers watching this a shot of PTSD.
Of course, because what had happened was an FAE who was no longer with the company had built a local demo version of the code of the firmware for a particular potential engagement and had just built it locally and emailed a zip file to this potential customer. And here it was 4 or 6 months later, the FAE was no longer with us, and this potential customer came back and they wanted to talk about it. They wanted to know, they wanted to engage. We had no idea. And to be honest with you, even if we had known what that person had emailed in the zip file, there still was no way to reproduce it. So that was kind of that's the origin story for Fuse Deliver. And I've been living that for 30 years. If you've been in the embedded world for any length of time, you have that same story. So
Embedded engineers, you should share your stories in the comments below. John, let's see the dashboard. Let's see what you are cooking.
So what we've done is we've built this with Fuse Build. We've built this Hello World application, and you can see here all the metadata that you have access to. Shows you here's our single source of truth, which is the Fuse ID. That is the magic number, which is essentially the version of this thing. You can see all of our dependencies, all the magical metadata associated with that particular build. Here's the source that goes into that. Here's all the packages that we've created. The bottom line is this: when you have access to all of this information, then you know everything. It's 100% reproducible, including the build tool chain itself, because that's part of the metadata that gets associated here. We can create releases. Okay, here's one that's already been released, and then once we have a release, then we can work on deliveries. Okay, so we can take this particular release, we can deliver it with Fuse Deliver. Once we've delivered something, we have all the security logs associated with where it's been, what it's been, and it wraps it all together, ties back. So if you've delivered this, you know where it went, and then you have all the metadata associated with with reproducing it, and you can instantaneously get back and do whatever you need to do with it.
Great. What a tool.
So the way Fuse Test wraps back into this, so we're running, in this particular demonstration, we're running some hardware in the loop testing. And as it completes, we of course connect the results of whatever happened back into the Fuse ID. So now we have, not only do you have all the metadata associated with the build and any deliveries you've made, but you have all of the metadata associated with the testing itself. So this helps not only from just an engineering knowledge standpoint, but it also helps from a complete traceability, compliance and traceability standpoint.
So we've seen what your tool bag can do for us embedded engineers. How can we get started using this?
The best way to start using Fuse or our services is to reach out to me personally. You can get me an email. It's the best way to get me. It's john.macdonald@atlas.io. And then we can talk about your needs, how we might be able to help you, how Fuse can help you, and how we can get started.
Amazing. John, thank you very much for your time.
I've enjoyed this tremendously. It's been great talking about what we do and how we can help people.